Hi there, I'm Stacy, the encaustic mixed media artist behind Studio Stacy. Encaustic literally means to burn in. So I paint with beeswax and a torch, and because it's mixed media, pretty much anything else I can get my hands on. If you're new around here, welcome. If you're a returning viewer, welcome back. Consider subscribing and joining this artsy community. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up button, which helps me get introduced to more like-minded artsy folks like yourself. The aftermath of painting large. Time to get this place cleaned up. I know I've mentioned this soy wax brush cleaner before in the past, but I just wanted to reiterate the fact that it works really nice for cleaning out your brushes and your griddle. So I just take just a little bit. You don't need much. Sprinkle it on the griddle, let it melt down, and then I take a cleanish paper towel and wipe it all off. Careful not to burn yourself doing this, of course. Safety first here. And then for the brushes, I have some in this tin. I'm just going to put a little bit more in. Doesn't need a whole lot, but basically you just smush your brush around in there. Kind of just pretend you're rinsing it off like you would with water. And then again, take a cleanish paper towel and you can wipe your brush off. And it's kind of like a conditioner and cleaner all in one, so it leaves your brush like pretty soft and pliable. Kind of nice, or actually it is nice. I should mention for the bigger brushes, I just take and dump the soy wax down on a cleanish griddle and kind of smush the brush around to get it into the soy wax, and then just wipe it off with a paper towel. But I'll leave a link to that soy wax down below if I can find it. Like I said, it's really nice for cleaning your brushes, and it's good to take care of these kind of expensive natural bristle hockey brushes. So I'll leave it down below. And now that the griddle is all cleaned off, I'm going to take this drip tray, dump it into this little tin here, and we're going to melt it down, see what color we get. Now that those griddles are all cleaned off, it's time to get the rest of this mess picked up. So I'm going to put you on time lapse and just do that really quickly. Okay, I'm going to leave you here for the day with a pretty cleaned up studio back there. ready to start the next project. Today I have to, or the rest of the day, I have to work on the 100-day project. So for this video, I'm gonna leave you here and I will pick you back up just in a few seconds, very shortly for you guys. And I'm probably gonna take the tape off of this, put the wire on the back, at least take the tape off. I need Matt's help to put the wire on the back, but the next step is taking the tape off. So I'll show you how to do that in just a few seconds. I almost forgot to show you the color of that drip tray paint. So I'm gonna pour it into my silicone mold here. Ooh, greenish kind of color, which I assumed it might be due to the blues and greens that were on that tray. So that's kind of a pretty green. Hi all, back in the studio for a short amount of time again today. And today's plan is to get the tape taken off of this painting. And so I thought I would show you how I do that. And I have a couple little mini pointers when it comes to doing this. The thickness of the tape I use doesn't wrap all the way around the back side. It only goes, as you can see here, down a little portion of the way. So what I like to do is I try to take this little bit off here, off of the back side first. And I just find that's easier. And then once that little back piece is off, I can take the rest of the tape off. And I've done this a couple different ways. First, I always lightly warm the area with the torch, but you can treat your edges any way you see fit. I've scraped completely all of the wax off some of the edges, and then some of the edges, depending on the painting, I leave these little drips on them, just on the very little bit of an edge. And it's just all a matter of personal preference. I think for this one, I'm gonna leave some of these drips on here because they like the way it looks. But you don't have to. You can scrape that kind of to a very clean, smooth edge if you want. No matter how you treat those edges, before you remove this next layer of tape, you definitely do want to heat slightly with your torch or heat gun, whatever you use for your encaustic painting. If you don't heat that, you have a chance of just chipping those wax drips off, and that may happen to chip onto the front of the painting depending on how that wax chips. So you don't want that to happen, otherwise you're going to have a chip on the front of your painting and have to figure out how to repair that. So if you heat it up just a little bit, the wax is more like pliable, slightly melted but not completely melted, and you can just peel that tape off and there's no chipping. There's a bird loudly chirping outside. At any rate, just enjoy the music in the background if you hear that. But I like to, especially with these large paintings, take each side as one. I fuse slightly each side and then peel that tape off and then move on to the next side. However, when you do that, you definitely want to be mindful of any tape hanging over the edge, as it could be a fire hazard. So just a word of warning there. I also like to pull my tape kind of in a downward motion. I think that camera picks up that, or the video picks that up. So just a couple more tips, and then yeah. The reason I heat one side at a time is they don't have a chance of cooling off before I start peeling the tape off. And again, there's no chance of that paint chipping. I don't know if you caught that on the time lapse, but I had to get out a pair of tweezers. And sometimes, for whatever reason, the tape just kind of gets stuck up underneath those wax edges just a little bit. And so I need to get the tweezers out to pry it out. I probably didn't catch it in the time lapse, so tweezers could also be a good tool to have on hand when taking the tape off of your edges. And one last thing about taking the tape off of the edges, more about finishing the actual edges off. I go back over one more time with the torch on every side along every edge and just make sure it's nice and fused down. Because you know, as you were pulling that tape off, you did pry some of the wax up just a little bit, even though it was heated up. I just want to make sure everything is kosher and nothing's going to chip off once this painting goes off to its forever home, wherever that may be. So one last fuse. And then one more last fuse over the entire surface of the painting. And that way, again, I'm just making sure all the wax is fused together. And, you know, when it goes off to its forever home, nothing will be chipping off or anything like that. Good morning, all. Today's plan is to put a hanger on the back of this large painting. First, I need to clean off this space. In our old Ohio house, I was able to take the paintings out, put them face down onto a carpeted area to put the hangers on. However, we don't have any carpet here or any soft surfaces. So my plan is to use this surface. I'll probably bring in Matt to help me out, wire the back, because one of us might have to hold the painting up. But at any rate, I'm going to clean off that surface so it's as clean as possible, so that if we do put the painting face down, it's going to be a nice clean surface. The help has arrived and he's thrilled about it. We're ready to wire this up.
I'm wired. We also go down 1/3 of the frame. I don't know if that matters or not, but it's kind of a nice balance as far as like a tipping point on the wall. And you know, we found that on the internet too, so I don't know, about 1/3 of the frame down. Precision is key.
Pre-drill. Oh, I'm at the wrong angle here. Trying to hold it and film at the same time. This takes talent, guys. This takes talent.
And she's got it. Alright, once you've got the other side wired in, what I like to do is basically just come a few inches past, cut your wire, yep, cut your wire. Right. So while it's taut, you kind of want to bend it in place pretty close to the loop, then loop it forward. Then you can actually push it through the loop here, and then take your loose wire and wrap it back through. Pull it. You're pretty tight at that point, and that keeps your wires fairly straight. And as you even pull on it with the pliers, you'll see it'll tighten up your wire. So you don't need them super tight, but at least keeps it fairly tight across there. And then this part, just wrap it super tight. Like we like to make sure that we're just kind of going right on itself like this. And once I get that done, tighter the better. We also use a wax coated wire so it doesn't slide as much. Some of them are just metalled, but I also found, like with the metal, you pinch your fingers a lot and poke them too. So this is actually nice because it's coated. And then you'll see, like even as we pull up on this, it'll tension up a little bit. Tighten all these up, and then you got a nice tight wire there, and then your wire is actually nice for hanging. And you're ready to go, nice and tight.
I also wanted to add by going a third of the way down on the painting. So this happens to be 24 by 36, so we go down about 8 inches. 24 divided by 3 is 8. But that way every painting that's 24 inches high hangs at that 8-inch level, so that if somebody, say they buy, 3 paintings of the same exact size and they want to line them all up, it's really easy for customers and collectors to do that. And so just trying to make things nice and simple for us, and then also nice and simple for when you buy the painting, they're easy to hang. There are 1,000,010 ways to name a painting, just like there are 1,000,010 options for naming a painting, or for the name of a painting, I would say. But I thought I would share a few ways that I tend to name paintings. And 99% of the time, I name a painting after it's finished. I don't even think about it really while I'm painting. Sometimes some ideas will come into my head and I might jot them down, but for the most part, I try not to get stuck on one idea. And I tend to like to jot things down. I just use a plain old notebook that I have other businessy kind of stuff in, other studio Stacy in, and I just flip to a random page and start jotting down some notes or ideas based on the painting. So I spend a lot of time kind of stepping back, looking at the painting, jotting down maybe some obvious things that are in the painting, and then maybe some of the concepts behind the painting. And some paintings that take me a while to kind of get painted, or that are a little bit more difficult, I may think about why they were difficult, my feelings kind of behind the painting while I was painting it. This particular one doesn't really apply that way. Even though it took me about a month to finish it, there wasn't anything super tricky. I wasn't really hitting any major roadblocks with it. So in that case, it doesn't apply to this one, but I just thought I'd throw that out there. If you're having trouble naming your paintings, maybe think about how you were feeling when you were painting the painting, if there was any roadblocks that you hit. Did the painting come together really easily? Maybe there's some adjectives and words that you want to use to describe the painting. If it actually, you were happy while you were painting the painting, all these things can help you name a painting. But for this particular painting, I'm focusing on the elements that are in the painting and kind of the concept behind the painting. That's just what's working for me, I feel, for this particular painting. So once I have kind of those broad overall aspects down, I sit down and really think about other words that might also apply to the words that I've already jotted down. And I do spend quite a bit of time doing this, unless a name just pops into my head and I think, oh, that's it, it's perfect. But that really very rarely ever happens. And I also use my computer or phone and look up synonyms to words and things like that. Maybe that will spark another word, or maybe that word is more appropriate. I am not a writer. I am not great with words. I think one of the hardest parts about being an artist is actually naming your paintings. So I feel you on this if you were like myself. One of the very last steps to getting this painting ready is to buff it. And I just use a plain old blue shop cloth, but basically you want kind of a lint-free, or not kind of, but you do want a lint-free soft cloth. So anything that's lint-free and soft. You don't want to end up having any extra scratches or anything like that in the painting because you've buffed it. So you're just going to take that soft cloth and go in a light circular motion. You don't want to press too hard. There's no need to press hard into the painting. I also like to just take a couple of precautions, and that is I take a look at my cloth every now and then after I've buffed a little bit of an area, just to make sure I haven't picked up any little extra wax pieces, or if the painting's been around for a little bit, any small things that could possibly scratch the painting as I am buffing it. Now, I should say this buffing process is not required. You don't have to buff your encaustic paintings. I like to buff most of mine and just kind of bring out the shine of the wax. It kind of gives it a glass-like look. And to me, it kind of gives it more of a clear finish where you can almost see all the way down through it, if that makes any sense. The other thing is, as the encaustic painting is curing, it might develop a bloom on it or a cloudiness, if you will. It's completely normal. So if that happens, you just want to take, again, this soft cloth and buff the surface, and that bloom will go away. Now, that bloom eventually goes away forever after about 6 to 18 months, depending on the painting. In order for it to go away forever, though, you do need to buff your painting. Hopefully all of this makes some sense. All right, the very, very, very last step is I come up with a price, of course, and I price mine. I have a spreadsheet so that each size I know a price for. So I already have that figured out. But the next step then is also to put a certificate of authenticity with it, describing the material and saying, you know, it was authentically made by me and all of that stuff. I will, if I can find one, I'll throw one in here, in this little clip here. However, I need a name for this painting before I can do that, and I've yet to come up with a name. I've been mulling over this list that I wrote a couple days ago, and I don't know, I'm not convinced on exactly what I've come up with yet, so let me share with you what I've come up with. And actually, maybe before I share with you what a couple options that I've come up with, I'll explain the deeper meaning behind this painting, why I painted a painting like this, other than I love the forest and the trees. The main reason is, and also the main reason that I put in those hand veins at the beginning of the painting, and I used different species of trees in this painting, is talking about reaching out, understanding each other better, developing connections, and just giving us grace, each other grace. And I think I've shared this before in the past, but in case you're new around here, those hand veins have a special meaning to me. Not only that I use my hands to paint with, obviously, but that I have an autoimmune disease syndrome, a blood syndrome that has affected my hands, my eyes, and my heart. And you probably don't realize that unless I were to tell you about it just by looking at me. My hands seem completely functional, right? And I'm painting, I'm seeing, I'm not like, don't seem physically unable to do things, I think is the best way to say it. And also, because of this autoimmune, I have to be very careful to not get sick. And the past couple years, we all know what's been going on here, I've had to be extra cautious. And in fact, my husband and I are still wearing masks indoors at crowded places and still taking a lot of extra precautions. So all of that being said, why this painting has a really special meaning to me is also understanding each other. So if I'm wearing a mask indoors these days, I'm going to look a lot different from most people out there. And I have gotten questioned on this. I've gotten comments on this, and both positive and negative. And until you really understand the situation or understand where somebody's coming from, just because they may look a little bit different than you, maybe they're, just because they're different doesn't make them bad, or doesn't make what they're doing bad. And I know a lot of you out there can relate, whether you have an autoimmune, whether you have a different take on things, whether you look slightly different, whether you have, I don't know what, but I'm sure all of you can relate, and probably at one point in your lifetime, have been judged based on your looks or something that you're doing that people don't understand. And so that's kind of what this painting, well, not kind of, that is what this painting is about. To take a closer look, to reach out and truly, truly understand somebody, and then have compassion towards that. So don't then maybe continue to judge them. Especially once you know the situation, try to walk in their shoes. Take a path with them, or maybe ask them to explain it a little bit better. There are people that know what I have and still question what Matt and I are doing. And while I completely understand that, because it's unique, it's different, right? I have a very, very, very rare autoimmune that attacks things like my heart. I've had open heart surgery. It's not something that we mess around with, right? And so I just ask that, yeah, I think we can all relate to each other, and that's what this painting is about, to try to relate, walk down the path, walk a mile in somebody's shoes. You know how they say all that. But really do that. And then if you're still not understanding, ask questions, because I am always open to answering questions about why I'm doing this, why we're not going here, why we can do this but can't do that. Because once you understand that, maybe you will have a better understanding of that person, whatever you're wondering about, why they're doing this or how they look, or, just, yeah. That's a very long speech for what this painting is about, to then tell you what I'm thinking of naming it. So hopefully you're still here for all this. All right, so a couple words have stuck out to me, jumped out to me as I was writing them down. Pathway, passageway, uneven ground, connections, openness, graciousness, new beginnings, unique, empathy. So there's a lot of words there, right? So I'm thinking about pathway or passageway. I think probably pathway to either openness or graciousness. I'm also wondering about uneven ground. Like we're kind of treading on this uneven ground, trying to get to know one another and connect with one another. So, connecting on uneven ground, maybe. I'm not sure. If you guys like any of those or have another idea, please let me know down below in the comments, because I would love anybody's feedback. So anyways, I think that this painting is done, and I do hope you enjoyed coming along, maybe hearing me rant a little bit. Sorry, I had to put that book down. Yeah, so thank you so much for coming along. If you did like the video, you got some tips on how to take the tape off, finish the painting, hang a painting, all that stuff. You know what to do. Give it a thumbs up. It really, truly, truly does help me out. And as always, thank you so very, very, very much for coming along. We'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.